Okay, here we are at the start of turn 2 in the old SBI flat tray version of USN. We, like I said, are on turn 2 and we are going to skip step 1. We don't have any new units or reinforcements to deal with. Step 2 is the Japanese move air and naval units engage in combat and bombardment. So we're going to go right ahead and proceed with that. Like I said in my previous video, it's very hard without more forces to gain sufficient odds to damage naval or air bases. It's easier to neutralize them, but in this case the Japanese must damage, I believe, the air base for victory conditions. So I don't think I have enough air or naval assets to get the X result that I need to score damage on Henderson Field. Let's see, we need to damage or not. Japanese player, if airbase in Guadalcanal is destroyed. Doesn't say anything about neutralizing it, so we're going to just go ahead and try to get victory points based on a naval battle. So I'm thinking most likely of moving this naval force with CV3 in it, Zuikaku, and this naval force with the Shokaku in it, and I think we're just going to go on down the slot and engage the American carrier group led by the Saratoga, and just go ahead and engage it in air and naval combat. And that's going to be a pretty climactic battle, I believe. So I think that's going to be the plan for the Japanese air and movement step. Okay, this is the position after step 4, where the Allies move their air and naval units, and naval units will engage in combat. Let's see. I don't know. I've been looking here. I don't see where. Let me double check here real quick on the sequence of play. I think air and sea movement. I think that the Japanese player gets to engage Allied naval units with his naval units first. And then during the Allied air and sea movement in step 4, it's kind of reversed. And then step 5, everybody gets to use their aircraft. So, I need to back up to step 2. Sorry about that. And this is where the Japanese player would have moved, or had moved, and will engage in surface combat. Just for, I guess, a reference kind of a thing. The battle's going to take place over here near Santa Cruz, where the little white counter is. And we will later have an air combat up there in the northern part of the frame. The Japanese air unit will go ahead and try to bombard, strafe, whatever, the air base up there containing the American long-range bomber aircraft. But that will wait until step 5. So anyway, we're going to come back here. We're going to have basically just one huge naval air battle type thing. This will probably be a decisive battle if everything goes according to plan for both sides. I don't remember what happened historically, but the Japanese lost or had several carriers damaged. The Americans lost pretty much nearly all of their carriers, either during the battle or when they retreated or fell back, whatever. Of course, this is not a midway type situation, nor is it a Coral Sea kind of thing, but both sides got pretty bruised up. So I expect to see a little bit of that here. So we're going to go ahead with the Japanese, as if it's a Japanese naval movement, in which the case they all moved down there to where I had that white counter. And they're going to go ahead and engage in surface combat. For that, we are going to need CRTs number 4 and 5. Let's see here. And that's going to be pretty much what we've had before. Let's see. Right there on the left-hand side, I know it's going to be impossible to read, but on the left-hand side we have number 4, if you can see it, and it's going to be basically determining combat odds on the surface engagement comparisons of their factors, and those numbers down there will be the damage level numbers, which we will apply over here to combat results table 5. Wish I could make that a little bit clearer, but where you'll roll a die and try to see how many damage points you'll score on an enemy vessel, or in the case of X's and such, the amount of damage you'll do on bases and that kind of thing. So, in each group, or each stack of naval units, you have, they're grouped in groups of, they are arranged in groups of 2, starting from the top of the stack to the bottom of the stack. I put 2 Japanese forces and combined them together. I don't know if I was supposed to do that, or if I should have left them as individual stacks. The only thing I see is, upon entering a hex containing an enemy naval unit, they're considered to be engaging those enemy units. So if it's just supposed to be, you know, 1 stack, whatever, I think it's all totaled up. So if I am mistaken, then there'll be no big deal. This is not like for tournament play or anything, or that kind of thing. So anyway, without further ado, we are going to take the attacker, and this is, in this case, we are going to be the Japanese player, because we have all aircraft up. During this phase, the Japanese player moved all air and naval units. Does the Allied player not get to use or move his air and naval units? Because naval combat has to come first before any airstrikes or any air bombardments occur. Air and naval land units. I'm not quite sure. I wonder if the Allied air units are just stuck on the carriers, and their only job is to provide cap at the moment. That's quite possible. Let me grab some aircraft off the Zuikaku, which is CV3. I think, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them at the moment. And the planes off the Shokaku, which is CV4. And if I'm butchering these Japanese names, please forgive me. It's not like it's my second language or any language of mine. And the Ryujo, whatever. This way over here. He'll have 1. Most likely, CV3 Zuikaku will put these up for cap in its hex, or against its fleet. Now, I'm not sure how that's going to work out exactly, but I will endeavor to figure it out here to the best of my ability. Okay, so one quick referral here to the chart. Let's attempt to engage. Then we have the Allied air and sea movement phase, which is the same. And then we just have basically airstrikes and stuff. But I'm wondering if you get a carrier damage now, you're not going to be launching any aircraft. So it seems to me like that should be maybe a simultaneous phase, but it's not, so I guess we'll go with that. If the Allied player gets to strike first during the Allied land attack mutual airstrike phase, step F, he'll get to announce his air attacks. Then the Japanese player will announce air attacks. Then they'll do bombardment with aircraft, and the Japanese player will do bombardment, and then other types of ground support. And then you try to return back to a carrier if it's still there. But that's all well and good during step 5. Until then, it looks like a case of naval bombardment. Looks to me like there ought to be like a die roll for a detection or something to see if you detect a group before you can engage in the surface combat, or they should put the air movement first and bombardment and all that type of stuff. But we'll see how this works. They may have it all wrong to begin with. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start with the surface engagements. Okay, so we're going to do the Japanese surface engagements versus the American surface units. Like I said, we're going to use that one, or those two CRTs. And what we start with here is the defender, this will be the Americans, may move any or all of his naval units with a movement allowance equal to or greater than the greatest movement allowance of the attacking units into an adjacent hex. That might be the thing. They may not want to engage in a surface combat, because then it would be their option during their movement in step 4 to engage. So that might be a better deal. This adjacent hex is preferably one of the 3 hex sites not adjacent to the hex that the attacking units are entering from. So in this case, I'll swing around here real quick. The Japanese player, I don't remember the exact positions, but probably came in through this hex side there, and the ones that came from over here, probably the same thing. So they probably all came in the same hex side. Let's see, so the Japanese had to leave one unit back, and that's the battleship, because it has a movement of 5 down here, and any unit that has a movement allowance smaller than any of the other units engaged in combat must be left behind, basically. So in that case, I think the Americans will try to slip back towards Esperanto Santo, or they could go to they were near Santa Cruz, and there's an air base at Santa Cruz. So if they slip back to Santa Cruz, one hex away, then it will be up to them whether or not they want to stay, whether or not they want to move into the Japanese hex and engage in surface, or if they just want to, we go to the air combat thing. Because right now, Japanese air should already be allocated, and then in the 4th step, Allied air will be allocated. And then step 5, all air units will go ahead and engage or perform their missions. So let me do a quick rethink of this, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, welcome back. This is going to be turn 2, the final turn of the Eastern Solomons battle in USN by SBI. I've kind of done some rearranging of some air units and such, but it's really nothing that important, I suppose. I'm finally, I think, getting down the procedures for air and cap and naval units and engagements with the naval units and all that. But I'm not going to guarantee it. Anyway, it's making a little bit more sense, and what doesn't make sense, I'm just going to fudge. The Japanese on step 2 gets to move their naval and air and conduct naval bombardment, but the air does not occur until step 5, and that's for both sides. Anyway, the Americans were in this hex, and the Japanese moved both of their carrier forces into this hex. We'll just assume. That would be these forces here. I put the carriers down to the bottom because in, I think, naval combat, everything goes, we'll just pretend this is one big stack, everything goes down this way in groups of 2. And if you have leftovers, then they just defend as one. And the American forces have fewer escort type ships, so pretty much all their carriers are stacked from top to bottom. Okay, if I've done this right during steps 2 and during steps 4, first the Japanese and then the American player may move their naval units, engage in combat, and assign their air units to missions. I think you assign air units to missions first before any kind of naval movement combat. It doesn't really specify, but that's what I'm going with. I think it makes the most sense. The other thing is the defending naval units may attempt to retreat if they meet the requirements, which attacking naval units are supposed to enter a hex from one or more hex sides. In this case I had 2, and they all entered from the same hex side, which basically would have been here. Would have basically been here entering into that hex. So that means that all these other hexes they have that they can retreat into if they wish to withdraw from combat. Considering the number of Japanese surface vessels, the Americans most likely will withdraw. However, the Japanese player has to assign his air units first. And he has done so based on his carriers and his one air base, in which I put over here one 10-point land aircraft unit. I may have fudged with that one, but I just wanted to put it there because its intent is to attack this place in Australia. Cohen, what is it called? I don't know. Cohen, C-O-E-N, I don't know. Anyway, they're going to bombard the base. They're too far away to engage into Solomon's battle. Guadalcanal has no air units in it at this time, but I may try to move something in there when it's the Americans' turn to allocate their air power. On the sheet over here, which is the air allocation mission chart, which I'm just going to give you a quick glance, based upon where the air units are based, either a land or carrier, you will assign how many units of that carrier or base are going to attack which any naval units or perform any air missions by writing down that target. I think I'm also supposed to write down the actual the grouping of 2 units of each Oh, what am I trying to say? I think I'm supposed to write down the two groupings that we're going to attack with air power. I'll probably just put the aircraft beside them. They don't have to move as long as you know where they came from and where they're going, except for certain types of air missions. So, but first of all, we got to allocate those. The Ryujo has 2 strength points. It's going to be all applied to Cap. Let's see. We're moving the 10 factors here over to Australia. Now, I'm not sure if Australia can be attacked in this scenario. In fact, I don't think they can. So I may, and I couldn't even put them at Leh anyway, so they're going to have to start at Rabaul. My mistake, sorry. The bombers can start there, I believe, according to the campaign setup. So, if I have to, I could just probably put them in... Port Moresby, I suppose. But they do have a pretty good range, so... I'm just not sure where they should actually be located. Let's just change a few things around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess I could put them over in... What is this place? Santa Cruz? Yeah, let's just put them there. 1, 2, 3, 4. New Caledonia. Okay. I'll put them at Santa Cruz. I don't know if the B-17s or whatever they are could actually base there, but they have enough. The actual air base itself is 5, and there's only 3 of them. So, let's quickly move on. This is pretty much still a learning game, and I don't think I'm ever going to fully understand it without lots of play, and I have not done that. Been pretty slack on it. Like I said, this game's probably been up here about 5 months now. So, there will definitely be something different on the table next time. Okay, without further ado, that gives this unit just a chance to go ahead. Well, what is that? 3? Yeah, Japanese naval. Well, yes, Japanese units are a little bit better. So, for what it's worth, they're just going to go ahead and try to do a naval bombardment of that hex. Or air base. Sorry, an air base bombardment. Okay, the carriers. I'm not going to move them, but carrier air, naval air. I guess I will. The Zuikaku CV-3 is going to be down here. And it's going to be a naval attack mission on the American units. And we have the Shokaku, which is CV-4, and it's down here. They will also plot to attack the second group. Zui and the Shokaku will target those. So I guess it'd be best if I did it this way. This is all not going to matter here in the long run, so we'll see. Okay, that in focus? Yes. Okay, so here's the deal. They've allocated their air and they've allocated their naval units. They have to engage in surface combat, if possible, when they enter a hex with enemy naval units. However, the enemy naval units have, or the defender, have the option to retreat as long as their speed is at least equal to the attackers. So I intend to do that because I can see that I'm up against a formidable amount of Japanese units. So what we're going to do is we're going to retreat any hexite that was not entered by the Japanese player. So I think we're going to retreat probably into this hex. So, in doing so, that leaves Japanese in the battle hex, or whatever hex you want to call it, the hex they were attacking, their naval units and their air component. However, from what I can tell, the air component can follow up to its range, its targets that it was allocated during the initial air movement phase. This isn't clearly spelled out in the rules, but it makes sense to me. Otherwise, those units are basically useless at the moment. They would just return to the carriers as if they were aborted, and I guess they would be turned over so they could not be used as cap. So I can play it either way, I guess. And since units bombard a given naval type, or given naval group, I'm not sure how exactly I want to resolve that. I don't see anywhere in the rules where it specifically states one or the other, but surface naval engagement, the defender may move any or all of his naval units with a movement allowance equal to or greater than the greatest movement allowance of the attacking units into an adjacent hex. La la la. And they cannot be engaged again that turn because they're considered to be fleeing. But it does not say what you do with the air units that have been allocated to strike those units which have retreated. So, it doesn't say anything about anything. In fact, in the sequence of play, it states that air units at the end of subsegment F and G, all naval units remain aloft. C11. 11 has to do with I'm not sure what, or L. You use better lighting in here. In L, return all remaining air units to a base within their range allowance of the air units. In AC, must, if possible, return to the hex they flew from. If there's no place for them there, they may return to another base or carrier. Cap must land at the same hex they were launched from. Air units that exceed airpoint capacity or are out of range of any base are destroyed. Okay, well, it will be possible for the Americans to land all their units in the new hex. That's fine. And I guess the Japanese players' air units, let me double check here. I know this is painful, but not nearly as painful for you as it is for me, or vice versa. If they're bombing of naval units, this is air. Attacking air units are assigned to attack specific defensive naval unit groups. That's the stacks of 2. First, resolve all air-to-air combat, then anti-air combat, and extract losses again. Senior naval, air, and aircraft defense. Okay. If more than one type is attacking, each type must make their attack completely separately in this order. Long range, bombers, land aircraft, and naval aircraft. Each aircraft type must completely finish the attack sequence before another attacks. The enemy cap may fire at each attack as well as at the anti-aircraft of the naval units, or as well as the the naval units. However, aircraft shot down or boarded by a prior attack may not continue cap, and any damage to ships is effective for the following attacks. Okay, well, that's all great. Bombardment hit by enemy aircraft, naval units, and naval bases. I mean, not break down. Okay, so I'm not really sure what happens to the original attacker's aircraft that he has already allocated to a mission. So, in my mind, it's either no effect or whatever, because the American units have retreated. So they're basically out of the battle at the moment in the new hex. Sorry. However, their units are still targeted for the units in this hex, and that will not affect them because their movement and targeting will occur in step 4. So, if they wanted to, they could just race right back into the Japanese hex, which would be foolhardy and waste of time. So, since you're targeted by a naval group or grouping, but it's against a specific hex. I'm just kind of confused as to what I should really do about that. So let me think about that and I'll come back. Okay, after doing a little bit of thinking, and believe me, that took a lot of effort, I'm going to say that the target hex and the target naval units, if the naval units leave the hex, then the aircraft that were targeting them basically go back to their carriers or their bases and are flipped face down to indicate that they have aborted or have been used up for that mission, and it may not be used again until step 8 for the Japanese, and step 6, 7, 8 move naval units, step 4 for the Allies. Is there another one? Step 6 for the Allies as well. Okay, so anyway. So we're going to go ahead and just take these because there's no longer a target there. Now, if the Americans or Americans were to go ahead and enter their hex again, since all Japanese targeting or aircraft have been used, that would place them at a disadvantage. And only their cap would be effective because that's the only way to engage in cap. So I think this will work. So let's see. I had them way up there because they were going to attack. CV4, CV3. CV3 is a Suikaku, and it has 8, I believe. I'll put those back up here on the chart, off camera, of course. These are the sheets that I made for both carriers and just regular air bases. And we'll take the last of these off of CV4, which is the Shikaku, and they're also 8s. So these units basically have no targets, and they get to go home. This should be the Ryu. The Ryujo still has its cap up, and that's all it's going to be able to defend that group if the Americans come in with their naval strikes. The thing is, the Americans will already get to. They haven't plotted yet because it's not their phase. Anyway, we're going to move down to step 4, which is the Allies move air and naval units engage in combat and bombardment. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay in our new position. Doesn't really matter who's who. We're going to stay in our new position where we retreated to. And let's see. And as far as I can't resolve that till the combat part, the mutual combat. Let's see. Well, let's see. It looks like I was plotting Yeah, one air base attack. I don't know if I still need that or not, because I did move that heavy bomber. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it could go ahead and do it. So we'll leave the long range bomber on its mission. It's going to go ahead and attack. Let's see. Pardon me here. This long range bomber here is going to go attack this airbase. For the heck of it, it'll have no effect, but it still helps me learn about stuff. Okay, and the other carrier aircraft are targeted for 896, which is the hex with the Japanese units in it. So CV3, who's going to be on cap? CV7. That's the Wasp. So everybody else is going to pick a target. CVAs, I think they have, man, do I want to do that? I think we'll hit the CVL. What's protecting the CVL? You do get points for this stuff after all. Okay, it's got a heavy cruiser. Might survive that. And then the Enterprise was plotted to attack any units in that hex. I think they will try to attack CV3. In fact, I may go ahead and just do... I think everybody's going to go ahead and attack CV3, which is who? Suikaku. Yeah, let's just try to at least nail one. Okay, so that's how it looks for the American naval movement and air allocation, basically. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to move those ships there, but I could move them a little farther away, making sure that they're within 2 hexes. So they can still move even though they retreated. Japanese units cannot move into this hex. They have to ignore them since they're steaming away somewhere. I'm going to move them up here, just basically 1 hex away. 2 hexes away from the battle, but 1 hex over here. So, well, wherever the battle was, I think it was here. Okay, so, to make this even more painful, I'm going to check and make sure that I have the naval strike rules versus naval units down. I guess I could go ahead. Well, there's a certain sequence you kind of got to follow. Let's see here. Let's verify. You examine each other's stacks of units, then you determine which 2 you want to attack. Remove air units. Allied player announces all attacks against naval targets. Execute this, execute that. All bombardment against land units. So we're going to do the we'll do the air versus naval first, but just for the heck of it, to get it out of the way, we're going to have the Japanese player. He didn't do anything, did he? He didn't move. But he's still within range to do what I wanted to do. So we're just going to kind of back up the clock. He'll move 3 and attempt to attack this base. Okay. Yeah, I know this is all clumsy and haphazard, but there's a lot to this, and I haven't really been able to give it my full concentration, so I apologize for that. All right. Now we are going to do the airstrikes, American airstrikes versus naval units, and then we'll do Japanese airstrikes versus naval units, which there will be none, and then we will have bombardment of land units and bases, which I've already taken care of. So I think we're just going to hit one carrier. Yeah, because we want to at least score some heavy damage on it. There'll be another chance, I think, to do this again. So we're going after, like I said, Suikaku. And we are going to apply all this air to it. Alright. Sorry for my big hands in the way. Okie dokie. First thing will be cap. And there is some cap. There's 2 cap points from the Ryujo. And I know I'm butchering that, and I apologize. And let's see. Their air-to-air strength is going to be 10 for 2 factors there. So they're going to have a 10. Which is going to be fairly pathetic. Double check something real quick. And attacking air units. So let me see here. Cap and attacking air units fire at one another simultaneously. So I think that's all attacking air units. It'd be kind of nice if they could have broke it down into fighters and bombers. But that's not the point. So I could elect to not allocate it and just rely upon anti-aircraft fire, which would just be the ones on CV3. The only time all of them can combine anti-aircraft fire is when they're at a base. So, do we engage? We have on the 10. Well, we actually do have a chance of aborting and killing, so we'll do that. However, the others have 2 5s. That's going to be on the 10 column. That's going to be 50 plus 3, 6, and a normal, and another 25, 30. So we're looking at 50, 60, 70, 80. And on that column, you're going to pretty much wipe out the cap. So I don't see the cap having much effect. They'll destroy, but they might take somebody with them. So let's do that. Okay, we're just going to fire the cap first. It's 10 points because it's naval air, and there's 2 points of it, which will give it a 10 to 19. So there we go. A 6. They miss entirely. Now the allies will fire back. We're going to fire back on the 10 table, which is going to be for them, air to air is going to be 50. Then I'm going to fire on the 6 table, because I guess you carry it back over. I don't think 10 is the max you can have for naval air. I don't see that in the rules anywhere. But if that's incorrect, then I'll try to change it next time I play. So they have a 30. So 50 and 30 is going to be 80. So on the 80 chart, this is going to pretty much just overwhelm and destroy them. Rolling a 2, it's a 7-6. So yes, the Ryujo's aircraft are destroyed. Now the allies are coming in against that carrier group right here of 2 units. This might not look good for the carrier. Maybe I should have split stuff up a little bit. The carrier has an anti-aircraft strength of 16, and the heavy cruiser has an anti-aircraft strength of 6. Oh, let's see. I think we do pretty much the same thing on the same table. So we have what? 16 and 6. 4 is 22. 22 for the Japanese, and that's it's not a great table, but and the Allies will be coming in. They don't get anything at the moment. Yeah, they do. They have to have a number of air bombardment, air-to-air strength. They're going to be coming in at pretty much the same, 80. Let me double check cap. I may be screwing up cap here. Let me double check before I hose that up. Not cap, but anti-aircraft. Sorry. Okay, anti-aircraft is just going to be whatever comes up off the target. So we are looking at, like I said, 22, I believe. So they're going to roll a die on the 22 column. They roll a 4, which is kind of average, but not that great. We have 1 abort and 1 kill. So the Allies, that would give them what, a 1 left over. Do I have to cut out more counters? Oh. Okay, just a minute. I need to cut out some counters here to get me make some change. Okay. After a cursory reading of the rules, and we've already done anti-aircraft, in which the Allies lost 2 units, 1 to boarding and 1 to destroyed. They are now going to go in against, let's see, the Zuikaku and a heavy cruiser. They're going to go in with all these air units against those 2, which is legal. I am going to limit all air missions to 10 points because that's as far as the tables go. So now if there's excess, they will fire, as I have been doing, on a lower number. So if there's 10 and 4, one will fire on the 10, the other will fire on the 4. Kind of like in Hitler's War. Yeah, if you know anything about that. So this is going to be pretty bloody, I think. We're going to take the defense strength, which is the number to the far left, I believe. Yes, the number to the far left. And I should have stuck them with a heavier unit. And total it up. That's going to be 9, 10, 11. And then we're going to go and find that. Where are we going to find that at? We're going to find that on the air to surface table, number 3. But that seems to require an odds. Why does that require an odds? Because it doesn't matter. That's the defense strength. So, I will figure this out eventually. I swear it. Their strength is an 11. So, going in as the Americans, their bombardment strength is 110 for 5 and 44 for 4. So we're looking at about 154. My math is even somewhat close. 110, what did I say? 44? 44, yes. So, let's see, that's 9, 10, that's 4. 9 minus 4. Okay, let me double check my math, which is the same as just let me check it. 154. That's what I figured. Okay, so 154 divided by, I said 11, is 14 to 1. So the 14 to 1 is going to be, if I can get this over here without too much trouble, on this table here. So there is only about a 50% chance of getting a combat factor number that will be over here. It looks like it's probably going to be a 1, and in that case it's going to be very hard to get anything, but we might score some damage enough to send her back for repairs. So 14 to 1, or whatever it is. Yeah, 14 to 1. 14 column, whatever. 14 to 1. We're going to roll the die. And we roll high, which is not good. We will have no effect. I rolled a 5. That's no effect at 14 to 1 odds. So you can see, even coming in with a preponderance of strength, I only had a 50% chance. Well, actually, yeah, 50% chance to score any damage. You want to get, like I said, up into the 31 or greater odds. I'm not quite sure, but I haven't looked at all the aircraft and stuff to see how many you would need to inflict that kind of damage, or even ship-wise. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do. That was a big chance to score something, some points. What you get for sinking ships and stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and call this game. I might spend some more time off camera studying some of the rules a little bit better, because I know I did a pretty bad job of that. Let's see, victory for this particular scenario. Has something to do with Guadalcanal again. Let's see here. Addition, damaged or destroyed. Nobody was really damaged or destroyed. In addition, the following points are received by the player holding the following geographic objective at the end of the second game turn. Well, that's going to be pretty much the Allies, because I don't think anybody else can do much against it. In addition, the Japanese player receives 100 points if the airbase on Guadalcanal is destroyed, in which case no one would receive the points. And let's see. The Japanese player also receives 25 points each game turn the airbase is damaged, which means you would have had to score the X to score 5 points against it, which would basically destroy it. Other than that, you just count up any ships destroyed. None of those were destroyed, so basically it's a wash. So I'm not going to go through the rest of it. You can kind of get an idea of how the system works. It's a little cumbersome, a little clunky. The game could use a few house rules. I could use a little more familiarity with the sequence of play and how everything comes together. I made several play aids for it to help me out, but apparently I need a few more to really get the sequencing down. But anyway, that is the game USN by SBI, dated 1971, flat tray version. So when I come back, I will have another game on the table. Hopefully I'll know more about it and it won't be quite this painful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Over and out. Oh, don't do that.